Sometimes you got to stick by with what you firmly believe and be willing to walk away from a deal, one that even I had already invested a lot of time, energy, and money into. My role in divine purpose is to empower others to empower others.
The body is a crazy place to live.
If you want to change your psychological state, you change your physiological state. You don't always have to put periods after each of your roles. You can put commas.
Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast, a show to share stories, insights, and experiences in strength, physically, mentally, and spiritually. I'm Michael Krukowski, host of the Strength Connection, and I'm so grateful that you can join me today. So in these episodes, I connect with some of the most inspiring and successful individuals to chop it up and learn from true life experiences that have helped them become who they are, the strongest versions of themselves. One of the greatest ways I've always learned the most important lessons is through stories. We all have them, and they make us who we are. So let's dive in. Here we go. I have been looking forward to connecting with this man ever since I started podcasting. If you've been in the strength and conditioning world, this man needs no introduction, and you've undoubtedly been influenced by his work, whether you know it or not. So today I am joined by Todd Durkin, world-renowned performance coach, keynote speaker, educator, and the founder of Fitness Quest 10 and the TD Mastermind program. Todd has been a motivational force for the past 25 years, working with the NFL, MLB, UFC, as well as brand leaders like Under Armour, Perform Better, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America. In this episode, I got to dive into Todd's early days, how the word impact has been such a powerful word in his life, the concept of balance and harmony in both life and business, and his views on mind, body, soul connection. So this was a true honor to be able to share space with this man. I was ready to run through a wall after this conversation, and I bet you will too. So with that, let's get right to it. Before we do, please show your support for the show. Make sure you subscribe and rate the podcast wherever you're listening. And also check out our YouTube channel, The Strength Connection. Your support means everything to me, and I sincerely appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let's get on with the show. All right, let's do it. Todd Durkin, welcome to The Strength Connection.
Man, Michael, I am honored to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. You're doing great things, Michael.
I really appreciate it. The honor is all mine here. I'm like many thousands of people. I heard you speak probably like 12 years ago when I was first fresh in this business of coaching, and you made such an impact on my life from the energy that you put out and just the passion that you put into coaching from day one. So, for me to be able to connect with you one-on-one here is a real honor. So I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. I certainly love live events. I love connecting with other trainers and coaches, and I call them impact makers, right? Life transformers. So I appreciate you sharing that and us reconnecting as well.
Yeah, no doubt. So there's a lot of topics I'd love to dive into. I'm sure we'll get to, a few of them here. I want to talk about early Todd days of you growing up. I want to get into Fitness Quest 10, all the work you've done in speaking over the time. But to kick this off, I really like to ask you about impacts. So I heard you speak maybe a dozen years ago when you gave a great insight into creating a theme for your year. And it's like having that as the theme. And yours at that time was impact. And that was also the title of your first book, The Impact Body Plan. What is your definition of impact? And has that definition changed over the years?
It's an awesome question. I never come out of the bat with what is that, because it has changed a lot, Michael. A little bit of the background on impact and what it means now versus then. And the interesting story to go along with that was in 2010, one of my clients, Drew Brees, had just won the Super Bowl. And I had always wanted to write a book. And for the 4 or 5 years leading up to 2010, I had a bunch of no's from traditional publicists and publishers to write a book. And then he wins the Super Bowl. And then next thing I know, I got my first book opportunity to write the Impact Body Plan. And the story is this: 2 months before it gets published in 2010, just about 2 weeks before the kickoff of the NFL season, they wanted to marry the book coming out to the NFL season. I walk into the publisher's book in downtown New York City. Rodale published the book along with Men's Health. And I am so fired up. It took me 10 weeks to write the entire book, literally from start to finish. And I go into this president of Rodale and Men's Health, his office, and I walk in so excited to see the cover of my book, The Impact Body Plan. And I walk in, and on all over his his walls of his office was the cover of my book with a different title. And it wasn't called the Impact Body Plan.
We'll get right back to this episode, but first I want to tell you about Nabosu Technology. Nabosu is the leading company in foot care products created by the top functional podiatrist and human movement specialist, Dr. Emily Splickle and her team. Our feet are a connection to the earth and the foundation of all human movement, and it's often the most overlooked part of our body when it comes to health, fitness, and recovery. Personally, I never thought much of how the foot impacts my movement and strength until years ago when I found my intense sciatic pain I was dealing with was coming from a locked up midfoot and ankle issue. So after putting emphasis on this, my pain subsided completely, and since then I've made sure to take care of my feet before anything else in training. I use the Nabosu NeuroBall every day, whether I'm training or not, and I felt significantly better in both my barefoot strength training as well as running outside on grass and on pavement. Nabosu has the best products on the market, including the NeuroBall, recovery socks, splays, activation insoles, and the kinesis boards and mats. So to check out Nabosu Technology, click on the link in the comments or go to nabosutechnology.com and use the code CONNECTION and get an additional 10% off your purchase. Again, that's the code CONNECTION. Use it to get 10% off. All right, now let's get back to it.
And it was called True Strength. I'm like, this isn't my book.
Yeah.
He said, yes, it is. He said, we're not going with Impact Body Plan. When I think impact, I think car crash. I said, well, I don't. And I just spent the last 10 weeks of my life pouring into my heart and soul in this book. And to me, impact is legacy. Impact is a way of life. Impact is a mindset that allows one to think best of their body, mind, and soul. It's a 10-week transformative plan to help people in all aspects of their life. This book is all about impact. He says, sorry, if you want to go to publish, it's called True Strength. I said, well, I'm not going to print. And I walked out of his office. I'm sitting on this corner in New York City. I call my literary agent, if you will, my attorney, and say, you're not going to believe what just happened. We're just weeks away from going to print. And this guy just said that the Impact Body Plan isn't going to print. He's calling it something that it's not. He said, what do you want to do? I said, I'm not going to print with something that I believe that the Impact Body Plan is all about impact. And he said, well, then get on a plane and come home. And that's what I did. And Michael, there are times in your life when you're challenged about something that you believe in, despite some executive in a suit making a lot of money in downtown New York City with windows. And like, I could have said, yeah. But man, in my heart of hearts, no one knew, including myself at that point in 2010, what impact was, or will become. But I just knew in my heart that, man, I didn't have an acronym to impact then like I do now. It was kind of what I was about, but I just knew in my heart there was this feeling. Well, 2 weeks later, the Impact Body Plan came out. It got printed because I stuck to my guns and battled for the better part of a week and a half after I got back home to San Diego. My attorney said, sorry, we're not going to print, And I really learned a valuable lesson sometime, man. Like at that time of my life is sometimes you got to stick by with what you firmly believe and be willing to walk away from a deal, one that even I had already invested a lot of time, energy, and money into to make that happen. And to really answer your question, fast forward now 12, 13 years, impact is a way of life for me. It is a mindset. Most of my coaching programs are around impact, which is how you create your best self, your body, mind, and soul, your body, your mindset, your soul set, your heart set, to create a legacy that not only creates that impact today, but for future generations, including your kids and generations to come. And now it's everything I do is about impact. And the number one question I ask myself is this book, is this coaching program, is this gym that I'm going to speak to, or this keynote address that I'm going to have to a company within financial services or in insurance or whatever the industry that I go keynote, it's somehow going to create impact in someone's life. So to me, that's what impact's all about. It is a mindset, and it's a way of life that I operate in everyone I coach and everyone I train and everyone that I come across. It's, man, how can I tap into your soul to make you the best man or woman that you're designed to be?
Wow, that's so interesting that somebody could have a completely different thought of a word when they think of it versus another right there. That wouldn't even have crossed my mind of car crash in there, because I thought the same as you, like impact is how you impact someone, kind of looking at it more of a people person rather than something that's a devastation right there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I had never thought about that, but what's a publisher's job is to what? Sell books. And
Right.
they're like, okay. So part of that negotiation was when you look at the impact body plan and what it is when you look at it, I had to negotiate. And some of the things they want on the cover, like it's gonna blast belly fat. I'm like, I don't really want that, but I want that title. So we had to compromise, and we kept the get rid of belly fat kind of thing in there. But I wanted that impact body plan, because to me, it was like, I said, I don't think car crash when I hear impact. I think positive impact. I think legacy. I think legitimacy. I think when I hear impact, it's how can I be a positive impact in someone's life? How can I mentor, coach, train someone on that? So it just came down to communication and negotiation. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what I learned was I was willing to walk from something really important to me, knowing that this meant this was my world. And it, Michael, didn't yet exist. Yeah. That was the first time I was putting impact out there publicly. And now it's become my brand. And for 13 years. And interesting enough, even over the course of the last few years, it's kind of interesting that True Strength, that book that was supposed to come out in 2010 based on this guy, there was a whole different meaning to True Strength that I didn't know at 2010 that I have now, that will someday be a book called True Strength.
Yeah.
That at the tender age of, mid 30s at that point in my life, I wasn't ready for True Strength, because True Strength now, after enduring the last few years of things I had been through, okay, now there's room for true strength and what it really means to have true strength. It's not just about physical strength, but other types of strength too. So that's coming up. That's coming up here in the next couple of years.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see that. It's so interesting that I love stories like this of hearing the origins behind it, because knowing from afar and seeing the work you've done of how impact has been, such a part of your message, a part of your brand as well, that has, impacted so many. I'm one of them from so many different speeches and the books that you wrote. However, it was 2 weeks away from not being anything, from there. And then all of a sudden, fast forward so much. Do you ever look back do you ponder on that time a lot, of like going back and like remembering that time and just being like, stick to your guns? I'm sure that was probably a pretty big lesson.
It is a big lesson. And interesting enough, I feel like I've reflected on that more in the last year than I have in the previous decade. I think for several reasons, including I'm doing a lot more keynotes on impact, because that impact now is an acronym, right? Yep. And it stands, live inspired, master your craft, play at world class, get your mind right, take action, condition for greatness, and be tenacious, tenacity, energy, fervor, spirit, these things. So I'm doing a lot of keynoting around impact now. I didn't have an acronym back in 2010. It was more of a mindset. It was about a word. And then as I spent more and more time over the years, coaching and teaching and speaking, it took on a life of its own. And just in the last few years, in really going deeper on how can I help coach other coaches, other trainers, other people who want to get into even the life coaching side of things. How can I help them create more impact so they can empower others? Because one of those things for me, for impact, that I've done my soul searching on, is my role in divine purpose is to empower others to empower others. How can I empower other coaches to empower other people who they work with and mentor, coach, and impact them so we can proliferate? And for me, my goal is to impact 10 million people in my lifetime positively. That's impact. And I know the way to do that for me is through coaching and empowering others to be the best version of themselves so they can go influence hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of more through their work as well.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about kind of the beginning of this vision, bring it back like 25 years for you on this. Like you're from a huge family, I know. So that must have been, a powerful impact right there. Then you're also professional athlete, from there. Was it early on in your life that you knew that you wanted to get into some form of coaching at this time?
I never really knew what I wanted to do other than I wanted to be special. I wanted to be a professional football player. I wanted to be an NFL quarterback growing up. Long story short, growing up, youngest of 8 kids back in New Jersey. And my mom and dad got divorced when I was just 5 years old. I was the lunch ticket kid. We didn't have much money. So it kind of instilled at the age of 5 a work ethic that I knew I didn't have a dad much of my life between age 5 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked my tail off in sports, and I knew that I had a little bit of anger in me.
Mm-hmm.
So I channeled that through sport and actually through church. I grew up, in a large Catholic family, and it was the 1 hour a week I found peace and harmony in some weird way. I'd still go to church by myself and ride my bike there at a young age. And my dad came back into my life when I was 10 and poured into me. And I had more of a dad in my life from age 10 to 20 than most people probably have in a lifetime. But the dad I knew was not the dad that my older brothers and sisters knew, because they didn't have that father figure that I had. When I was 20 years old, unfortunately, I lost my father. He had a massive heart attack and passed away. And interesting now, as a father myself of 3 kids, I look back at the lessons that my dad taught me. And it was the hardest time of my life was when I was 20 and lost my pops, because he was everything. He was my mentor. He was my coach. He was my cheerleader. He believed in me. And the one thing now as a father and as a coach and as a husband, the one thing you can do is instill belief in somebody. And I think that's why a lot of the athletes whom I've worked with in my career, even the pro athletes, even Super Bowl MVPs, you've got to instill belief in people, because many times it's a coach believes in you more than you believe in yourself. And that's the one thing I've learned from my dad and the mentors and coaches who I had, like Coach Wolf growing up, is as a coach, how do you instill belief in someone so deep that they do things that they didn't think that they could do? And as a coach now, and more on the life coaching side and business coaching side, that's a really important trait that I believe that the best coaches in the world do. And my dad taught me that lesson and instilled that belief in me, though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew football was something that God blessed me with. It funded my college education. It allowed me to go play professionally overseas. And then at age 25, I suffered a devastating back injury while playing in the NFL Europe and overseas. And I was in France at the time. And that was the second toughest time of my life, is going through a back injury that ended my career at age 25. 3 herniated discs, spinal stenosis, degenerative back disease. And this doctor saying, your football career is done, over, time to move on. And I don't know if anyone listening in today has ever had their dream crushed and you have no idea what's next. And listen, I already had my undergraduate degree. I already had been to massage therapy school in my off season. I already had my personal training certification, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. Like I had all the credentials you could have, but I was still like, man, I don't know what my dream is. I don't know what my purpose is. And I was 25 years old, lost. Like, man, what do I do?
What was that process like at that time? Because it was only 5 years earlier that, you lost your dad, which was one of your big mentors, really your leader from there. Was that a time of a lot of like self introspection, or did you have any great leaders or mentors come into your life at that time?
I had several in different facets of my life. So at that point, after my back injury, which they had told me at the time I needed surgery, I was doing everything possible to get out of pain and avoid surgery. And that was my philosophy. I'm going to do everything possible. You name it, I did it. Everything from traditional physical therapy, osteopathy, chiropractic, energy healing, acupuncture, yoga. I did it all. And I came across a guy named Double E, who had combined Rolfing, structural integration, and energy worked on me. And at that time, I was on Vicodin. I couldn't get off of Vicodin, Michael. I was in a bad place physically. They told me I needed the surgery. I was on Vicodin at that point for about 6 months, and I couldn't function without it. And I get this Double E to do this Zen body therapy on me. And the next thing I know, I'm puking and I'm like, man, I got a flu going on here. And Dub's like, no, that's called a detox. For the last 6+ months, you've had more anti-inflammatories and painkillers in your body than any human being should have. And for 3 weeks, I detoxed to the point where I was puking at what tasted like metal out of my body. Now, here I am. I come from a traditional background in kinesiology degree. I had studied all this, and this was my first, I'll call it, master's degree before I actually got my master's degree in healing. And he taught me all about fascia and healing and soft tissue. This was before this was in vogue. This was 1995.
Okay.
And he's talking about all these things. And next thing I know, after that 3-week detox, I never took a Vicodin after that. And I was pain-free. So I'm like, I got to learn this. So I started to learn Rolfing and Feldenkrais and what he called Zen body therapy. Interesting enough, he was one of my main mentors in my 20s that helped me develop a deeper understanding of healing. Again, I'd already had been certified as a strength coach and a trainer, but now I had this other side of healing that I didn't know. This was all part of God's master plan I didn't know this then. I was just kind of lost, confused. And I lived in 13 cities in 5 years, learning from gurus on healing and pain and conditioning. And my 20s were spent trying to work on myself when all my friends were back in New York City on Wall Street making big money.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, man, I'm just trying to get myself out of pain and figure out what I was supposed to do with my life. And again, what I learned later on and looking back, hindsight, was this was all part of the preparation to then eventually open up, just shy of my 30th birthday, my gym, Fitness Quest 10, which became my sanctuary to combine all my different dreams of football and sport and health and fitness and healing. So I combined basically one-on-one training with massage therapy. And that was the start of Fitness Quest 10 in year 2000, of taking my desire to help people. And I didn't know if I wanted to be a doctor, a physical therapist, a chiropractor, a teacher, a coach. But this is kind of a way for me to combine all of my strengths and desires. And in year 2000, a small studio, 2,000 square feet at the time, with refurbished equipment and carpet. That wasn't the normal thing. It was at that time all big box gyms, pay a membership and hope that no one ever came in.
Exactly.
That's backwards. Like I want to see people. So for the first 3 months when I opened my business, I had no clients, no money, no business plan. I was like, man, I'm gonna be in great shape because I'm working out all day long. I realize that's not a good way.
You got nothing else to do at the time. It's like, just stay in the trenches.
Right. And then all of a sudden, this woman, Donna Dickinson, comes up the steps and says, I got bad knees. And Michael, all of a sudden, I started helping people. And I was like, man, I like this. This is really cool. And I was helping people of all ages and levels and shapes and sizes. And it wasn't like I was working with athletes. And it was before I worked with my first athlete. And next thing I knew, 6 months in, my schedule is packed. I'm doing 40+ sessions a week, and like, hey, I like this. I'm gonna do this for a couple of years, because even then I didn't know, like, hey, I wanted to be a gym owner. I never want to be a gym owner. I didn't grow up want to be a gym owner. I didn't grow up want to be a trainer. All of a sudden, I'm combining all of these different things into what then became my career for what now is, over 25 years.
Yeah. It's interesting, just the whole process of healing that you talked about, like with the S&C work and like the structure behind it, the engineering piece of it. Healing is, there's such an art form to it. It's like, as my coach Brett Jones says, the body is a crazy place to live, and it's
Amen
like
to
it's a
that.
crazy neighborhood to work with. So, and how much emotional baggage, other things that just stay within our life. And it seems like, yeah, it's just pain. No, you need to detox from that. And to actually hear about you purging at this time, it's like, of actually getting through all this pain that's probably been so deep in there for a bit. It's like emotions carry so much weight at that time.
Man, so good, Michael. I remember Double E teaching me that in the mid 90s. I read this book from Dr. John Sarno, and I thought it was crazy at the time because he's talking about how pain gets stored in the body. I'm like, what do you mean pain gets stored in the body, right? Like physical, mental, emotional, spiritual pain gets stored in the fascia of the body. It didn't make sense until Dub's working on me and he's got his elbow in my hip rotator and he's working on me. And I have these vivid recollections as he's doing that of me getting hit by the two linebackers and taking their helmets and driving their helmets into my back and feeling the pain, the physical pain of me being lifeless on a football field in Aix-en-Provence, France, looking up at this blue sky and two clouds off to the left. And remember that beautiful day like it was yesterday and feeling the pain. And then all of a sudden I'm like, there it is. There's that emotional pain of being hit. Physically, how it gets stored in that body. And after I became really what I call a body worker, and the number of people and athletes eventually that I worked with whose pain on all levels, stemming all the way back to quote childhood, would come out through the physical manipulation of soft tissue. I had this different relationship now with training and performance and heck, even future forward, I started doing, as I later on in my career started working with more athletes and doing not only their training, but their soft tissue work and body work because of the relationship. When you look at optimal performance, there's a real relationship. But I started studying Dr. John Sarno in the late 90s. And again, this wasn't really talked about much back then. Now it's certainly a little bit more readily available and studied, but the relationship between fascia, healing, pain, these things have been around for a little while now.
Yeah. So now, like in your time at Fitness Quest 10, now you've opened the space up. It's been a while now. All of a sudden, your time is packed, and from everything going on there, I mean, it's been one of the top, gyms. You could see it in Men's Health, over and over from there. Was there a moment early on when you can look back and say, "Oh, like I'm on the right track. Like this is where I'm supposed to be"?
Well, like anyone who's been around for a while, you get these fork in the road moments in life. You have different seasons. And obviously all of us listening in have been through different seasons, especially in the last few years on the post-pandemic side. There's different fork in the road moments. And there certainly have been different fork in the road moments for me. To answer your question specifically, when I started to grow a staff and went from zero or just me as a one-man show to all of a sudden within 2 years having 16 trainers, massage therapists, and Pilates. Okay, I'm like, all right, I'm on the right path because I really find a lot of joy and fulfillment in this. And I started all of a sudden working with pro athletes. My first guy came in for body work because he had a bad back, interesting enough. And I helped him. And next thing I know, I'm working with him. He leads me to the San Diego Chargers. Next thing I know, I'm working with LaDainian Tomlinson. For all you football fans, back in the day, LT was the first round draft pick for the San Diego Chargers, Hall of Famer. I trained LaDainian for 9 years. Well, LaDainian brought his quarterback in, Drew Brees, who now I've been working with for 22 years. And then Sproles
had a decent career. Yeah.
All these guys start, it's word of mouth on that. So there's those fork in the road moments of Vaughn Parker walking in to Fitness Quest 10, and that opened up the path to then work with LaDainian, who became an MVP in 2006. And then the book, The Impact Body Plan, comes out in 2010. Starting my mastermind group of starting to coach other trainers way back in 2007. So there's been all these fork in the road moments that have evolved. But the one thing I'd say, Michael, that is in common, I guess you could always say always restless, never satisfied. I'm not sure that's a good thing or bad, because I've always found fulfillment in this whole career, but I've always liked having multiple hats.
Yeah.
Never viewed myself as just a trainer or just a massage therapist or a business owner. I've really enjoyed writing. I've enjoyed speaking, and I've spoken more in the last couple of years than I have in my entire career. I'm enjoying doing a lot of keynoting now. I'm not spending as much time on just the training side, but I still train. Yeah. I still love to train. I lead classes, but not to the point where I'm doing 40 sessions a week and leading 8 classes a week. We used to be at 42 employees here and teammates at Fitness Quest 10. In the pandemic, we did that out like most other gyms. We've got 25 coaches, trainers, support staff now on the FQ10 side. My personal side, the TDE brand, through the podcasting and coaching that I've been doing. That's a bigger part of my life now than just Fitness Quest 10. I brought a partner into Fitness Quest 10 now to run the operations side and lead that, because I realize, as God has spoken to me more since the pandemic, the latest fork in the road is, hey, what are you going to do to proliferate your own impact? And I realized that 90% of my time was at the gym, and I was trying to do bigger and bigger and bigger things than just this community that I've built, but only 10% was on the outside stuff. And I've reversed that now. So I'd say 90% is in trying to really evangelize impact and globalize that through podcasting and keynote speaking and coaching. And about 10% of my time is actually inside of Fitness Quest 10, training my athletes and the Fitness Quest 10 team.
Yeah, I think it's so great. And I think that you stay within the training trenches in there. That sharpening the saw, I think, is such a powerful message. So many people think, oh, I'm going to do this for a while, and then I'm eventually going to work myself out of this because I want to get to other things. And what I've seen from you is how many hats that you wear, from the training, from the business ownership, from the mastermind, podcasting, the author, and stuff like that. Going into all these hats, is it something that you thrive on the challenge of doing something that you're not comfortable with? Or is it just kind of spreading this energy out so you can impact the most people at one time?
Yeah, it's the $1 million question, because sometimes I've had coaches that have coached me and say, you got to pick one. If you really want to do better financially, you got to pick an avenue and go deeper on that. They're probably right? They're probably right. Like, hey, if you just go deep in just coaching or just this. But every time I try to take myself out of coaching, like when I say coach, I'm talking training right now, it's like a drug that I can't get. It's part of my DNA. I have to. I don't care if I'm training in a parking lot. I hope when I'm 75 something, I'm still like, I want to do it to be clients. I'm still training, because there's nothing like having the ability to, when you're one-on-one or a small group. I just had a group of athletes here this morning. That's part of who I'm supposed to be, right? That's who I am. And for me, I do love the challenge, but I have a great team around me, Michael. And as my vision has evolved into really trying to grow impact, I realized that podcasting, like yours, reaching a lot of people, I love podcasting. And I maybe like, I would just podcast. But if I was just podcasting, there's nothing like the juice when I'm up on stage in front of, I don't care if it's 50, 500, or 5,000 people delivering a keynote. I know that when you're live and in person, that there's nothing like that. So I'm like, sometimes I'll just be a keynote speaker. But then I realize I'm keynote speaking. I can only speak maybe once a week or a couple times a month live. So my podcasting or social media, I'm hitting people every day on that through the messaging. And my coaching programs, got several different coaching programs between my mastermind, which is for fit pros, and my Impact X, which is for non-fit pros, who are people who are just high performers or former high performers that want to regain their mojo. Or even the latest thing I've been talking about is I just launched a life coaching certification program to get more Todd Durkin impact coaches to help scale our team. I realized the power of a team allows me to grow the vision and then have great folks who are within each of these, I'll call them departments or silos, that can help us execute that vision. So I don't pretend that I do it all myself and I'm behind the curtain doing it all myself. There's a lot of people who help me execute the vision on that, and that's grown. So I enjoy having multiple hats. Sometimes I'm like, man, maybe I should just choose one or two, but I realize that I enjoy each of them in their own regards, and including the sanctuary. When Fitness Quest 10 here is part of my DNA, and whether it's Fitness Quest 10 or I'm at a gym in another state or another country, I love being in people's sanctuary. I love being in the gym. And I've always said that if you want to change your psychological state, you change your physiological state by training your body and your mind and your soul, and you can change your life. And to me, the physiological state that we change when we're training, that's the epicenter of all changes, is the physical aspect. So I hope that answers your question.
I think it's awesome. I do. No, I do. I love, because I think what I found too is, like, from doing different hats, like one caters and helps strengthen the other one. Like if you just focus on one specific thing, you might get really good at that, but you might be missing out on other experiences of trying different things. The way that you speak on a podcast might be slightly different than how you do a keynote, but they could balance each other out and they can help each other out. I always love the word harmony rather than finding balance. It's like balance is always like you need equal amounts of energy and all things. No, it's like if all things are harmonizing together, it's like juggling. Like maybe one, you're throwing the ball up a little higher on one of the hats versus the other, but you're keeping them all in the air. And once you find a good juggling pattern, then it all works together. And then you're actually building strength in all different areas.
100%. And you said it, here on your podcast, we're having a conversation and you're asking great questions so we could have a conversation. When I'm doing a keynote, it's not necessarily a conversation. I'm trying to get into someone's heart and soul. And I say, I got 1 hour to make sure that I change someone's life in this audience live, and they're going to feel me. They're going to feel me in a way that they can't feel me in any other way. Versus a coaching program where maybe it's a 3-month or 6-month or 9-month go deep kind of an intensive coaching program where we can really unravel something that might be holding you back, or obstacles or challenges. And we've got those systems to really work through on that. So I find these different mediums are ways to connect. Maybe you just need a little bit of mojo, a little bit of juice, a little bit of energy, and the podcast is going to deliver that. Right. And if you're at an event or you host an event at your office or your business, a live event, you gather the team together and we go deep. Or again, in a coaching program, allows you to go even deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper on that. So Pastor T.D. Jakes talks about this, is you don't always have to put periods after each of your roles. You can put commas. And I always like that is,
I love that.
You can have commas after this. Is you don't let the world define who you are. You define who you want to be. And then you go create a world that doesn't yet exist. And when you create a world that doesn't yet exist because you have a vision of creating a world that doesn't yet exist, to me, that's what fires me up is, hey, in a year from now, I want to be around other people who are impact makers that are going to create a world that doesn't yet exist, that's based on a vision of how we're going to change the world, a world that's not as depressed, a world that's not as obese, a world that's not as down, a world that really has more light in it. To me, that's what excites me. And I guess part of the reason why I have a lot of different hats or roles is because I envision the day that this world is one that is full of light and love and more joy and more peace and even more harmony. And to me, that's impact.
Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about that work-life balance aspect. We just talked about all your different hats that you do on the business side. You're also a father of 3. You also have a marriage on there. How do you manage both the work side of it, of putting all your energy into that, and also giving the same energy to your family?
It's a good question. I do a much better job now than I used to do, to be honest with you. The first several years in my business, I did not do a great job with a young family because my mindset was one of, hey, if I grow it and we have a successful business and it creates money, then we're going to create time freedom so we can do whatever we want. as a family. And I did miss out, Michael, early on with some of the little things that became big things in my family's life. And I was working 7 days a week. I rarely turned off. And one of my mentors, Wayne Cotton, taught me something about mellow yellow time and blue sky time. Mellow yellow time is time off. Blue sky time is working on your business, not in your business. And he asked me the question, he said, are you willing to give up some of the time that you are putting into your business so that you can create the life that you say you want to create? Because if you keep going the way you're going, which is eventually going to kill you, like your dad died at age 58, you're going to be dead at age 58 or before that as well. I'm like, whoa, okay, how do you do that? How do you slow down enough? He said, well, if you want more green machine, more money, then you need to take more mellow yellow time and more blue sky time, meaning if you get more time away, when do all your big ideas come? They come when you're in the mountains or at the beach or you're on vacation. That's when your ideas come, because you're in your subconscious mind. And then you get your blue sky time when you go on a retreat or lead a retreat, or you do coaching on yourself and you write your journal and you put some strategy behind your dreams. Then you can go execute when you're in the green machine time. Light bulb moment went off early in my career. And I've been able to do that. And Tony Robbins taught me about the power of the more success that you create, the more time off that you need. Not more time off just laying in a hammock doing nothing. Right. And that it's more time off so that you can re-energize, rejuvenate, but also have the time to think about what do you want with your business or your life. And in the last decade, I've invested more time on the blue sky time and even mellow yellow time. While I work my tail off, I would say the time that I spend in working is much more strategic because I have prioritized my family. In the last 8 years, I've coached my kids from 2:30 on in high school football. That's awesome. In my daughter's teams, 2 sons and a 2018, and then my 15-year-old daughter, and prioritizing time with my wife Melanie in 22 years of marriage. That is the thing I'm most proud of, is that my marriage not only has succeeded, I'm more in love with my wife today than I was with the day I married her, and we're spending more time. And it's not like, man, who are you? I don't remember who you are. That takes effort. And I'm not here to brag about that. It takes effort. It takes time of working on marriage through retreats and through we're both of strong faith and praying together about that. Because let me tell you, if you got kids, any of you listening in, that it becomes about your kids and about you're in this constant hustle and bustle. How did we do it, and do we do it? It's the hardest thing that I do is wear the parenting hat. Even today, we were booking all of our flights to go with my son's playing college football back east. And every weekend I vowed I will be there every weekend in his college career. He's a junior now, and I'm going to do my best to be at all or most of those games. And it's going to mean I'm not going to be able to speak on the weekends or on Fridays the way I want to, or I'm going to be, back and forth and planes, trains, and automobiles. But guess what? We have one shot to do this parenting thing right. And if there's ever a time that our kids need good dads and good parents, it's now. So it takes work. It takes priorities. It takes sacrificing some opportunities in anything that you do. For me, speaking, coaching, but if there's one thing at the end of the day, when they say, hey, when my time is up, man, I hope I can say I was the best father and husband that I could possibly be, and that my kids go on and have the values instilled in them from the early ages on up to now, that they go and do great things in the universe as well.
Yeah. That's so powerful. My great friend, my brother from another mother, Brian Grasso, talks about that income versus investment time. It's like, it's so easy, especially as a younger person too, just getting into a new business, or like to be in that income time. It's just hustling for just every day, because at those times, right, you work harder and you do see results, because you're just getting into it. But it is like so interesting that investment time, like, as you said, like that blue sky time, you actually give yourself time to be bored, to be unproductive or so. That's when those times actually come up where you get the next great idea. And I've tried it. I've tried to be in the trenches and like come up with those ideas, and it doesn't work. It's like you do have to sit back. Then all of a sudden, it's like your brain gets
Yeah.
still. It actually goes down, and then you can call it many ways. You can call it revelation, which I believe it is. It's like it's that time when you actually are ready to receive those things from there, but it
Yeah.
doesn't come when you're always in the trenches.
And just to be totally transparent and honest, it's a mind screw.
Yeah.
It's a mind screw because growing up knowing that if you want to be successful, you got to work. You got to outwork everybody, and you got to work 7 days a week. No time to rest until you're dead. All of the mentalities that was my mentality. But then trying to shift because I'd feel guilty. I'd feel guilty when I took time off. I feel guilty if I took a Sunday and I wasn't writing or doing something. And I had to work on myself to not feel guilty because it was actually purposeful to take time off. And on the other side, as I've gotten through that, what I realize now, LaDainian and Tomlinson taught me this, is that there's times to work and there's times to not work. But when you get success, the greatest danger to success is success. Because when you get successful, you can get real complacent and lazy and almost just revel in success. How do I know that from LT? Is because in 2006, when he won the MVP for the entire NFL, I'll never forget our first session after that. We're in my office talking about goals for the upcoming season. And he leaned in and said, for the past 5 years, we've been working for that goal to be the best in the league and to get MVP. And he said, what's next? And I'm like, what's next? What do you mean, what's next? We do it again. We run it back. Like, what do you mean, what's next? And I could see this look in his face like, no, that's not going to cut the mustard. Yeah. Like, that's not going to fulfill me. I didn't understand it then in my career. I did understand it in 2018, 2019, when I was going through almost this metamorphosis of there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to Fitness Quest 10 than me just having another year where I'm doing X amount of dollars and I'm impacting X amount of people. There's got to be more. There's got to be more to what I'm doing. There's got to be another level to me that I don't know how to tap into. Now, on the outside world, people would be like you just said, Michael, owner of Fitness Quest 10 and this and that. And I'd hear all that. And I'm like, that's cool. But inside, I knew that I wasn't hitting all the strides that I really needed to, because on the outside, I could say I could do that for another decade or two and be, quote, okay. But deep down, that I knew that I'd rather fail at something different and try, because I wasn't really going into my full potential. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hits, right? And I'm like, man, this is going to be interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is going to be real interesting. So it's kind of a mindset thing that we all go through. So I'm not sure if you're on the climb up the mountain, which many of us are very comfortable. I love the climb, knowing that, hey, the peak's at the top. But have you ever been at the top and you all of a sudden you're there where you've always wanted to be, and you're like, what's next?
Yeah. Got to look at the next
one. What I was asking myself.
Yeah.
In right before the pandemic of, man, what's next? Like, mm-hmm. I don't know if I want to keep doing this exactly as I've been doing it for almost 2 decades now. Mm-hmm. There's got to be something more.
Yeah. It's such an interesting lesson. I think so many people can relate to something on that line. When you were talking about that with LT, I remember I managed a club for a while, and our goal was we wanted to hit that 7 figures. We wanted to hit $1 million. Never hit it before. It's like, so that whole year, every day I'm looking at the number. I'm like, we're getting this number. And then we hit it. Mm. We hit it with time to spare. And it was like a day of celebration, and you kind of just, you rejoice for that. It was a nice ride home. But then next day you woke up and it's like, okay, what's next? Those things go really quick. It's like, if you don't, I think we're designed to grow, right? I mean, our mind is designed to grow, regardless of who you are, regardless of what success that you've made. we're designed to keep trying the next thing and keep growing afterwards. So, and I think that comes from it's a foundational thing. I mean, there's so many different, ways you can hear this, and so many different people have talked about it in great ways and articulated it well, but the cliches are true. It's like, we're born to grow. That 1% better each day is such a powerful thing, and you need to speak it every day. And if you do, it's just going to resonate more and more as you just get into the trenches.
Yeah. You hear these rhetorical statements like that, 1% better every day, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Until you're uncomfortable, right? Then you're like, oh, I don't like this. This is not good. I'm in a bad place. I'm in a bad place in my mindset. I don't know if I should have made these moves. I don't know if I should have invested in this. I'm not sure. And there's this season. I don't know if the season's 3 months, 6 months, a year, or 3 years or more, but there are seasons in your life you'll go through where you're going to question, am I doing the right thing? Did I make the right move? And all of those little naysayers in the back of your head that are speaking to you because you made a move of trying to get to that next level in your business or your life or your marriage or your relationship or, your finances, whatever it may be. I have just found that in my own journey and walk going way back is that growth mindset has been always something that's fueled me. And the one thing we don't want to ever do is put our own success and, more important, our significance on what other people are saying about you. You need to determine what is that divine plan and purpose for you. And you make sure you step into your story that you're supposed to be living, and not living it based on what everyone else is telling you should do, or you're believing the headlines on this or that. And I know for me, in my journey and impact and all of that, even in this latest season of my life, I've been sharing that on my podcast recently in my reinvention series of, hey, all of these things that we've been through are just ladders. They're lily pads to continue jumping so that we ultimately, at the end of the day, we have done everything we can possibly do to live our full potential. And it might be what you're doing right now, by the way. It might be training. And if that's what you're designed to do, keep doing it. That's why I won't ever remove myself from just I love to train. I'll always do that. But you can still be soul searching about, hey, how can I grow my training? How can I grow my impact? How can I possibly, through online coaching or through podcasting like you, Michael, how can I reach more people? Because the last I checked, the world needs a little more light, needs a little more people sharing positivity and encouragement and praise and acknowledgement and all these things. So it's that constant quest for perpetual pursuit of better.
Yeah. Speaking of light, I want to ask you about faith. You had something very interesting that you got a chance to do about a month ago, and that was speak at Shadow Mountain Church with Dr. David Jeremiah. And I believe you got a chance to talk about a father's love on Father's Day. And seems like a much different speech or keynote speech that you've done to businesses or fitness pros. What was that experience like for you?
I'm getting emotional. Pastor Jeremiah, if those of you don't know, he's one of the most prolific pastors of our time. You probably have seen him, Dr. David Jeremiah, Turning Point Ministries, on TV on Sunday mornings. He's global. He's got millions of followers. I've had the great opportunity to train him for the last decade. And he's one of those guys for me that I should be paying him to train him, where he pays me to coach him. The 3 times a week I get the opportunity to work with him. He's 83 years old, 83. And he makes me look like the biggest slacker of all time.
He looks amazing. Yeah.
He's writing books. I promise. He's got another one coming out in October. He's got multiple New York Times bestsellers. I'll go on and on. But he is constantly sharing so much life wisdom and business wisdom and relationship, everything. Like, this is a guy that stepped into my life and has become such an important mentor and friend. He's a great friend of mine. And I'm really honored to work with him. But the way that came about was, Michael, in April of this past year, it was a Friday. I just got done coaching him. I stretch him out on the stretching table afterwards. He's all sweaty and he says, "Hey, I have a question for you." I said, "What's that, Doc?" He says, "You always talk to me about getting outside your comfort zone." I'm like, "Of course, Doc. In order for you to get to the next level, you got to push yourself and challenge yourself physically and mentally. And you're doing a fantastic job. We got a great job to have our lower body and working on the backside, working on posture." And he said, "Yeah, you always told me about getting outside your comfort zone. And today I have a question for you that's going to get you outside of your comfort zone." I'm like, "What's that, Doc?" He says, "Well, I'm challenging you to step outside your comfort zone. And I'm asking you to deliver the Father's Day message at my church, Shadow Mountain Church." I'm like, "What do you mean deliver the message on Father's Day?" He said, "I'm asking you to step into the pulpit and preach." I said, "Doc, I can't do that. I'm not a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I can't preach to thousands, let alone millions of people." He said, "I told you I'm challenging you to get outside your comfort zone, and I'm asking you to take the pulpit on Father's Day to share all about what that means to you." I said, "Doc, I need to pray about this one." He said, "Okay, you pray about it. You let me know Monday what the answer is." And I got to tell you, all weekend, I'm still like, man, quote, great opportunity, but I don't know if I can. I got to go up and I got to proclaim my faith, and I got to make sure that, I'm public with this. And I prayed about it. And I don't know if there's such things as signs from God or not, but I'm going to tell you, I had 3 signs that weekend, vivid signs that I was supposed to step way outside my comfort zone and say yes. And Monday morning, when I said, "Doc, I'm going to accept you on your offer to get outside my comfort zone because I've challenged you enough. You challenged me. I'm going to say yes to that." He said, "Good," because I wasn't going to accept no as an answer because I knew that you were supposed to do that. And lo and behold, on Father's Day, I stepped behind that pulpit. And that pulpit, man, is a big pulpit because I know the responsibility that he has in changing people's lives. And I did that. And I felt extremely honored and blessed and humbled to preach on a father's love. My father, me as a father, and God as my father. And I gave those 3 lessons. That was how he didn't give me any guidance. He said, "Do whatever you want to do. You just don't come out in a gray hoodie and start screaming and yelling like you look crazy." He said, yeah. But I want you to preach.
That would have been amazing, by the way.
I may have done that if he didn't. Those are the only rules. Don't come out in a gray hoodie and start yelling and screaming at all my people. You might scare them all away. What's interesting that after that, he said, "You know what? That was so awesome. And the feedback is so amazing. We've got a cruise to Alaska that's coming up." And I got Tony Dungy and James Brown, the CBS Sports host for NFL football, and Daniel Jeremiah from NFL Network coming on that. He goes, "I'd like for you to speak on that and lead the workouts on the ship." There's 1,000 people from the turning point on there. So I literally, as we're recording this, Michael, just got off of the Alaskan cruise where I was actually speaking with Coach Dungy and JB and Daniel Jeremiah and Pastor Jeremiah. And I got to tell you, you talk about getting outside your comfort zone. Brother, I've been outside my comfort zone the last several months and being challenged in ways I've never been challenged before. I don't know where that's going, but I've always been led by intuition, just like back in 2010 when that impact body plan was supposed to turn into true strength. And I trusted my gut and said, "No, I'm going to do this." It's impact body plan. I don't know where this is going, other than I'm just really trying to make sure that I'm walking the walk I'm supposed to be walking with. And I'm not necessarily listening to what other people are saying I should be doing, I could be doing. But I do really listen to the inside and tap into the whispers of how can I best use my gifts. Like I would implore anyone listening in is, what are the gifts that you have and how can you be more audacious and courageous in sharing them? And that's what I've been doing, including right here on your podcast, Michael. And on my podcast, I've been doing that 300 and something episodes in. And Pastor Jeremiah has taken even a deeper, more impactful role in my life as someone I know that I don't ever take a single day or session for granted with that man.
Yeah. That's it's amazing that, I mean, regardless, as I said before, of where you are in life, there's always going to be opportunities for you to grow. You never get to that top mountain. There's always things that are going to be able to challenge you out of your comfort zone. And if you have the courage and you have the strength to take that, to sit back, to, listen to intuition, then you're going to be in the right spot. And that you've done everything that you've done for this industry, for this world, and to be able to do something like that, which does challenge you, that's another step in an incredible milestone right there. So it's so cool to hear your experience with that, Todd. And honestly, this has been a true gift to have you on. Like, seriously, I really appreciate you taking this time to share these stories and share the impact that you have. As I said, I've been a fan from afar for a long time. So be able to have you on here and to share this space with you has been truly powerful.
Michael, thank you. I can tell the heart and soul that you have, and I'm sure your listeners have. I've always been a big believer in that congruence between body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have body challenges, like physical challenges, like I've had 2 knee replacements and a back that blew out during the pandemic of trying to put the industry on my shoulders and back. And sometimes we have mindset challenges. And June 2020, I write this book called Get Your Mind Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't know going into that my mind would be challenged in 2020, 21, and 22, the way it was going to be. And as you know, your body and your mind work closely together. And then obviously the soul set, your spirit, they all work hand in hand. And never are they exactly where we want them to be, right? And in that true, every once in a while, when they're just in harmony and they're flowing, and that's when you're in this flow state of body, mind, and soul working so beautifully together. That's what we're all after is, how do we get physically and mentally and spiritually the deepest that we can be, where we're physically feeling great and energized, and our vitality is just at a beautiful state, and our mindset is our optimism is drowning out the pessimism that can many times bubble up to the top, and we're battling and we're fighting to get your mind right. And spiritually, regardless of what one's faith is or religion is or beliefs are, is where spiritually you can become stronger, and that as a spiritual being that it all works hand in hand. And when your body, mind, and soul are all really operating at the highest self, that's when we're our best. And that's what we're after. And I know with my programs, like your programs, Michael, I know that we haven't even scratched the surface of the number of people that we want to touch between podcasts and coaching and training and all of that. So I want to say thank you for the platform that you have developed and created, and all of the impact that you're creating. Thank you for tuning in from afar, and now from close in, for you reaching out, and Brett for connecting us. And I'm grateful for that. Anytime I have the chance to meet new people and hopefully, quote, impact someone in a small way or big way, maybe if someone's life has changed. I know I love that opportunity. So thank you, Michael.
Absolutely. You said it right there. That's why I named this The Strength Connection, from the mind, body, and spirit. So you just closed it out perfectly. Todd, thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate you taking time. If people want to check you out, see everything that you've got going on, what's the best place that they can go and see everything that you're working on?
Yeah, we got a lot going on. I have a podcast, Todd Durkin Impact Show, Todd Durkin Impact Show. If you go to my website, todddurkin.com, that has all of our latest programs. I've got a new Impact Life Coaching certification happening right now. And then also, I love social media. If you're on Instagram, follow me at Todd Durkin. On that, I connect with our folks. I love social media as well. So on any of the social media platforms that you may be on, I'm on most of them. And that's the best way.
Beautiful. Todd Durkin, ladies and gentlemen. Todd, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.